Welcome back to Kaulignation, your one-stop shop for all things Kaulig Racing, Dinger Nation, SVG Nation, NASCAR, and more. Huge weekend ahead for Kaulig at the Glen. Can SVG or AJ put Kaulig back in victory lane this weekend in either series, in the Xfinity Series or in the Cup Series? Not our multiple choice question, rather, but our question for this video is quite simple. Do you think that we will see a Kaulig doubleheader this weekend? Not one, but two wins, regardless of the drivers that pull it off. Yes or no? My line of thinking, not to be glass half empty guy again, but you can't get to two without one. So let's just focus on the first one and go from there. Joining us as always to preview the weekend ahead at Watkins Glen, it's Ryan. What's going on, man?
Hey, Sean. I'm doing pretty good. First thing I want to do, just super quickly, today's 9/11. 23 years ago today, terrorists attacked our great country and over 3,000 people lost their lives. So I just wanted to take a super quick moment to pay homage to everyone, that's been affected over the years, firemen, first responders, everybody that was affected by that tragic day, and how that's impacted not only our lives but every life around the world because of it. So today means something to me, and I'm sure it means something to a lot of people out there. Just wanted to get that off my chest. But with that being said, Watkins Glen is this weekend. It is my favorite race of the year. I am feeling exceptionally optimistic that we're bringing some very fast race cars to the track this weekend. Listen, a double would be very hard and probably something beyond the scope of what Kaulig's capable of, but I am the glass half full guy, and I think they can do it. I think they can get the double win this weekend. Between their driver lineup and the cars they've been bringing to road courses recently, I think they can get it done.
Well, the nice thing on the Xfinity side is I was really worried that they were going to have to deal with not just Ty Gibbs, but two Hendrick cars, which has happened in, I believe, two of the last three Xfinity Watkins Glen races. And that's not happening. Hendrick is only sending one car out there. Also, before we get any further into this, I know I'm Canadian, but, I remember 9/11 like the back of my hand. Multiple things happened across the United States, and Canada definitely went into a lockdown, and I remember there being a lockdown at school, and, it was a time that's, I affected so many lives senselessly. And just, obviously even 23 years later, man, crazy to think that it's 23 years later, but our thoughts are still with everyone that was affected from there. But moving on to the NASCAR side of things, apologies if you hear my dog in the background. It seems like every time we do one of these things, one of our dogs is going off. But let's look at the Xfinity Series race for now, and then we'll move on to the Cup race. At the end of the day, I want to see an AJ Allmendinger win, but I will live with an SVG win if that's what goes on. On the Xfinity side, again, as I mentioned off the top, they're not dealing with two Hendrick cars; they're dealing with one. They are, however, dealing with Ty Gibbs. But with how the Kaulig cars have been lately, the extra time they've had to prepare for this race, the extra speed they've shown, I'd like to think that speed's not just going to disappear at a place like Watkins Glen. That would be a brutal step back, in my opinion, that you cannot afford to have. So the goal here for me is unloading quick, starting towards the front in those first two or three rows, and going out and getting it done, whether it's AJ or SVG. I don't think Josh Williams has much of a chance at winning this weekend, but, if disaster occurred and there's massive wrecks that led to him, having a front row restart, then go Josh. But, Ty Gibbs worries me a bit because those JGR cars are overpowered. Not too worried about Eric Amarola starting this weekend. Um, to me, it's you worry about Ty Gibbs and you worry about William Byron because both of those guys could go out there and dust the Kaulig cars if Kaulig doesn't bring their A game. So other than that, though, man, I'm pretty calm. I feel like that's not to discount the junior motorsports cars, by the way, which there's 5 of them this weekend. Sam Mayer's good at road courses. Justin Allgaier is good everywhere, it seems like. And then obviously Connor Zilish is going to be in the race this weekend. That being said, we got asked by someone on Twitter. I've seen it put out there a couple of times that they're picking Connor Zilish to win this race. And my honest response to that is, you're out of your bleeping mind. And that's not a shot at the kid. Kid's a top tier prospect. Trackhouse is lucky to have him. Junior Motorsports is lucky to have him next season. But that first race that you do with much harder competition is not a walk in the park. There's going to be growing pains. And in my opinion, his goal should be a top 10, unless there's some sort of disaster towards the end, which allows him to start way up front on a restart. I do not think Connor Zilish is one of the concerns for AJ or SVG this weekend.
No, he's, in my opinion, not a concern this weekend, but that doesn't mean he won't be fast. I definitely expect him to be pretty darn quick. He's always been quick, and I expect that in the equipment to continue. But the overarching comment I have is that this race is stacked. Absolutely stacked with talent. Obviously, you listed off the biggest threats, William Byron, Ty Gibbs. Eric Almirola won at Sonoma last year in an Xfinity car, not driving for JGR at the time. I forgot. He was in a pretty mid-tier car when he won that race. So he definitely can't be overlooked. But then also Ross Chastain's in this race. Joey Logano's in this race. A lot of cup drivers are coming down for this event because it's a playoff race on the cup side, but it's not a playoff race for the Xfinity side, which means they can run it. So just in general, this field, top to bottom, 1 through 20, 1 through 25 even, somebody's good is going to be in those positions. So it's going to be a hard week for not just AJ, but SVG as well. Listen, I do have concerns about AJ. They unloaded quite well at COTA to start the year, but the road courses since then, they just haven't been all that good. Not really competitive for wins. And I know there was kind of during that stretch where they were off a little bit, and I certainly think they found something and they're bringing more speed to the track. But at the same token, we still have, Alex Yance. I don't know if he's having issues making a setup. I certainly hope they figure it out. They get it worked out. But I am definitely not confident like I have been in years past that AJ is going to stroll into this track and run top 2, top 3. He could very easily, as I just mentioned, with the quality competition, he could be running 5th or 6th, and that would be very disappointing. But I definitely have to consider it as a possibility. SVG, of course, has won every road race this year to this point. He has got to be the betting favorite.
No, he didn't win COTA.
Oh, he got DQ'd at COTA. That's right. But he should have won COTA. It's one of those deals where until he's dethroned, it's hard to bet against him. And Watkins Glen is definitely a track where I do think, he will be very good. It's not as technical as COTA or Chicago, but it does require a lot of skill to do the high speed corners. So I certainly expect both AJ and Shane to be very, very, very good. And I do hope they can work well together to accomplish a goal that I believe the team, would like to see an AJ win. Again, I'm not calling for team orders, but knowing where we are in the points, where we are in the season, it would be very beneficial for AJ to get a win here. So I would like to see some teamwork if it comes down to it to accomplish that goal. But it will be very tough. I mean, Ty Gibbs is always stout. He's in the all-star car that's won 7 races this year. William Byron won the Cup race last year at Watkins Glen. We know he can wheel it at a road course as well. He was right on AJ's ass at the Roval in the Cup race. So William Byron is absolutely no slouch, and he's going to put his best foot forward in that 17 car. So I am optimistic that we will win the race. We have the 2 best drivers in the field. But we definitely have to make sure that, as you said, that we bring cars that are fast enough to get the job done. I think we will. But I kind of need to see it. I'm a little nervous about it.
I'm not as nervous about AJ as you are, or even Jans for that matter, even though, obviously you and I have been critical about him. I think they've done 4 road courses so far in Xfinity, and I think you can really only have one where you can go, yeah, they really weren't good here. They were the second best car in every statistical measure at COTA next to SVG. And even then wasn't that far off SVG at COTA. Sonoma, I don't know what the hell happened there. If you go back through AJ's history with Sonoma, and I'm sure you remember a few occasions in the 47 car where it seems like he would qualify good and then something would always happen at that track. And it would have me just ripping my hair out because at that time you only had 2 road courses a year. Portland, he wrecks in practice, has to start from the back. Took him a little while to get up front. I think he ended up finishing 4th. It was, hard going, but he had to come from the back. And there was long stretches in that race without yellows to help. Obviously had some stage breaks though too. And then Chicago, I thought he was way better than I thought he was going to be there. And then obviously over-exceeded his limitations there when he ran it into the wall, had to go all the way to the back, and still got back up into a top 10 spot. So I think he's been good. And I think the cars have been quick mostly. But he hasn't executed, which is a problem. And with Watkins Glen this weekend, man, we'll talk about how it affects the Cup race too, but today's the first day I've really gotten a look at some of the changes that are happening there. And basically, they've made it so you can't go wide in turn 1, which I do not like because I think that's one of the most exciting parts of the track when you get down there and it gets 3, 4, 5 wide and they're all fighting for track. Now they've put a pretty heavy duty chicane down there where you go over that sucker, there's a good chance that you're going to cause damage to your race car. So I'm not a big fan of that. Sounds like they've done the same with the bus stop too. And I believe both series are getting extra practice time.
They are both getting extra practice time.
So that'll be good because, make no mistake about it, you are not going to be able to run that track the way you did. And if you are able to use those chicanes, you're going to have to do it very carefully. And that is something AJ used to do quite a bit in the past where he would, use those chicanes a couple of times. I remember breaking parts on the 47 when he was in it, and it would obviously take him out of contention. But I don't know if I like those changes. I'm all for slowing down the bus stop, man, because if you look at where we've been the last 4 or 5 years at that place compared to where we were 10 or 15 years ago, cars are just ripping through there.
Yeah, it's not a braking zone anymore, or it hasn't been for 5 years. So I do appreciate what they're doing there to force them to slow down into a braking zone to help with the passing. And they're doing the same thing in turn 1, which I'm actually not mad about. I haven't seen the pictures of what it looks like, so maybe I want to see a picture and be like, holy crap, why'd they do that? But the general concept, I think, is a good one. That they've created a monster in a sense that these cars were carrying so much speed into turn 1, and because they had so much runoff, that again, it was kind of reducing the ability to outbrake somebody because you could just go literally 30, 40 feet wide and still make the corner. So the fact that they've reduced that, they're limiting that, I think will actually enhance the quality of racing. I know what you're saying about the restarts. 3, 4, 5 wide on a restart is cool as hell to see. But for the rest of the laps, when they're actually at speed, I'm very happy with the change. So we'll see how it plays out. But I feel like it will benefit AJ to slow them down a little bit versus being able to carry so much speed. It limits the advantage that the Hendricks and the JGRs have, in my opinion.
Yeah, in that regard, I do agree, specifically in the bus stop area. And then on the Cup side, obviously, they have that new tire compound they're bringing. Knocks off somewhere in the range, depending on how you're conserving your tires, 3 or 4 seconds in a run, which is, massive now. Considering when you go back the last couple of years, there's been almost no tire fall off at all at Watkins Glen. How do you see that playing out? For me, that plays into the hands of AJ Allmendinger and SVG having more tire fall off, having to race under slick conditions. I saw some people speculating that it might have to change the way that you strategize your pit stops. For me, it shouldn't change anything for AJ or SVG. Those two guys should be flipping the stage, maintaining the tires, starting up front. I'm not saying necessarily first row, but starting towards the front come stage 2, stage 3, and then it's just in the hands of what you're able to do from there.
So I actually am very happy about this because we've started seeing these NASCAR teams get smart. Finally, it's taken them a few years, but we saw it a lot, especially at Sonoma, where the teams, and Chicago, but especially at Sonoma, where they weren't stopping at the stage breaks. A lot of the cars were actually staying out, taking the position at the end of the stage, and then not pitting. And then they would continue into stage 2 and pit somewhere in the green cycle in stage 2. So it really kind of limited the stage flipping that some of the other teams like Kaulig were used to employing. So now that they have this aggressive tire fall off where somebody that maybe does short pit at the end of stage 1 comes in, puts some fresh tires on, and now all of a sudden has a 2-3 second a lap advantage over maybe a car that stayed out. I think it's going to completely eliminate the ability to run long, which we've started to see this year, which would only benefit our drivers. So obviously the last stage, when you have a little bit longer run, it'll be interesting to see how you manage your tires, because you will have to manage your tires, and that is something AJ and I'm sure SVG are both very good at. So I think it only puts the advantage in our drivers' hands, where their skill level is significantly higher than their competition.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for sure. The one thing, in my opinion, that cannot happen is you cannot go to the Glen in the Xfinity Series or the Cup Series and have, like, if you've been watching the trophy hunting videos that NASCAR has been doing on YouTube, which has been a cool little series, but way too surface level for my liking for a documentary style thing, is screw ups at the shop where you pay for it on race weekend and you got to go to the back and change a power steering pump or whatever. And that's just happened one too many times. It happened again this past weekend at Atlanta. And they just decided to start from the back, and clearly, their strategy worked, and AJ won a stage and ran up front most of the race. But to me, you have to eliminate that from happening. Your pit crew cannot be the reason that you lose this weekend. Doesn't matter if AJ's in the 13 or not, who has been quite good this year on track. I know there's some confusion based off the entry list who AJ's crew chief is this weekend, whether it's Eddie Pardue, which would mean he's doing double duty with Williams in Xfinity, and then AJ in Cup, or if it is Felipe Lopez, who has been a crew chief for guys like Darrell Waltrip, Ken Schrader, Ricky Craven, and others in the past. Regardless, you've had ample time to prepare. Put it in the driver's hands, please. If AJ and SVG don't get it done simply because they're outrun by an overpowered Hendrick or Gibbs car, whatever, I'll deal with it. But don't take the race out of their hands. That's really all I'm asking for this weekend. Even if they don't win either race, allow it to be in the driver's hands.
Yeah, I agree with that. And for the most part, at least on the road courses this year, I feel like the team has done a very good job. They've really dotted their I's, crossed their T's, knowing that these are their best opportunities. And to this point, I haven't noticed any major errors, whether that's car parts failing or pit crew. But I definitely have to admit while you're a little bit more confident about the 13 pit crew, I definitely have some concern there that they just, they don't do it every week. They're obviously the backups to the Trackhouse and Kaulig agreements, and they're obviously good. They practice, but there is a drop off there. Otherwise, they'd be on the main roster. And knowing the fact that I do think we're competitive and have a chance to win, 1 second, half a second on a pit stop sends you from second to fifth, and that could be the difference between winning or not. So again, you have to be perfect to win these races, and it's very hard to win. And I do think we have the capability to do so. But there are some definite risks, especially being in the 13 car for AJ this weekend. And of course, just the natural pressure. I hope they don't put too much pressure on themselves. They just need to go out, as you said, just do their jobs, don't overthink it, and let the results be what they are.
For me, anyways, unless there's some big wrecks during a stage, which is possible, yellows happen, debris happens, and you got to come down. If you're flipping the stage, I'm not saying those are throwaway pit stops, but like, it's not the same as coming down with everybody under yellow, where you're P2, P3, even P1, and you got to hold that position and hope to not lose a ton of spots. You get a bit of a break there. You can't have a terrible pit stop, obviously, if you're flipping the stage, but you get some wiggle room there. It's that pit stop in that final stage that is definitely going to come with tire wear that bad that you can't screw up. That pit stop that's going to happen in the middle of stage 3, in my opinion, it's not just for Kaulig, all the teams, is going to decide who wins on Sunday.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Same for Saturday, truthfully. That final stage caution or final stage pit stop is going to be the money stop. And if they do, if the race does go fairly green, which I kind of suspect it will, obviously track position can overcome, a slow pit stop, as you mentioned. But there's almost always a late caution, things, especially at the Glen. The Glen is known for something that inevitably comes up. We don't see it at the other road courses as much. So I think you definitely have to anticipate it and prepare for it. And again, there's nothing you can do outside of just execute and try to get the job done. So I think we're just sitting here, as nervous fans, knowing we have a chance to win and kind of splitting hairs. But I just think they have the capability to execute, do their jobs, and come out with some wins. I certainly believe they're capable of doing it, and I'd like to be sitting here early next week celebrating a W. So that's pressure on my own end, but I think they can get the job done.
The question is, what do all you think? Do you think AJ or SVG can realistically get to victory lane this weekend, knowing that they got powerhouse teams to go up against in both series? Will they get the job done? Comment down below. Share your thoughts there. Share any concerns that you might have heading into this weekend. Maybe you're incredibly confident that either one of those guys could sweep this weekend. To me, if SVG won Saturday and AJ won Sunday, whatever, I'll take it. But let me know, let Ryan know in the comment section down below what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications to all. And as of right now, our intention is to live stream the race on Sunday. Full disclosure, I've been feeling a little bit under the weather, so we'll play it by ear. But right now, our intent is to be live with all of you to experience the Sunday Cup race. But for Ryan, I'm Sean. We'll see you in the next video. Keep a smile on that face.